Dr. Jackie's here, changing life loving you. Yeah, that's the groove, life loving you. Feel the truth, move, life loving you. It's all we do, come on through, it's just for you.
My view of myself is, it's not as simple as this is how I view myself. I want to kind of explain the metamorphosis, right? So I view myself as a very down-to-earth person. I am, to me, very simple and very basic to understand because I tell you what I want, I tell you what I think. So to me, it's like there's no guesswork. If I'm not telling you, it's because it doesn't exist. If it does, I would have told you. So I see myself as that way. I grew up as a tomboy. So being out there, you know, mixing it up and everything, that was definitely me. But I started modeling when I was very young because I was such a tomboy. My mom would send me to school, you know, you have the tights with the little dress and the little patent leather shoes. And by the time I would hit the playground, because we would get there a little early, you could play before the bell rang and you had to go into school. Man, I'd get in the classroom, my plait would be up on top of my head. I'd have a hole with grass stains on it on my knee because I've been out there running and playing kickball with the boys. That's me. So I learned to be refined in terms of poise and how you carry yourself. But I really am a tomboy at heart. Grew up with a household of all males. I have 3 brothers, and then there was me and my little sister. And then I gave birth to 2 boys, so then I have those 2, and then my husband. I'm the only XX chromosome in the house. So that's how I would look at myself. But I found out something about my self-esteem, that it's never constant. I think people want to judge you if you say, well, my self-esteem fluctuates. And I think it's really unrealistic to think that it doesn't. When someone breaks your heart, I think your self-esteem takes a dive for a few days. You lose your job, your self-esteem is affected. Well, for me, what affected me was I am 5 years old. I'm watching the television, and I see on the television that this great man had been murdered. And I'm watching it, I'm just playing in front of the television, but it just captivated me. And I saw how everyone around me responded. So I'm looking in the television and I'm watching, and it's Martin Luther King. And I hear a voice, like an audible voice, say to me, this is who you're going to be like. You're going to be able to speak, and people are going to listen, and you're going to make people better. You're going to help the world to be a better place. So I'm 5, you know, I listened, I heard what I heard, and you know, you're a kid, you just keep on playing. Well, months later, school starts, and I'm walking towards a school building, and I see this mob outside, and I hear this roar, and all these lights with police cars with the sirens on, and I'm like thinking, oh my God, they're here to welcome us to this wonderful school. I was all dressed up with my lunchbox and everything. It was cool. As we got closer, I saw objects flying towards us, and we were like ducking, and then I realized that the people weren't cheering us. They were saying that they wanted us to leave, and they were calling us names. And that began a very, very dark part of my existence, because for the first time I understood that I was Black. Not only was I Black, we were integrating the first elementary school. So I didn't even know I was Black. I didn't know that there was any such thing. But now I'm finding out that I'm Black, and that Black is the worst thing on the planet. So much so that people want to kill you. I was actually worried about my safety. It was so bad for that entire school year that we had to have police guard almost, you know, daily. Number 2, we were not able to eat in the cafeteria with our class. We had to be taken out, and we had to be brought in like at 10:30 in the morning to eat our lunch because the kids just destroyed the cafeteria throwing food at us. That was mind-boggling. It was very upsetting. It was very traumatic for me because I felt that I was somebody. Remember, I heard the voice. And now I'm being hated because of something I have no control over. It was just mind-boggling. But my self-esteem took a big change. About 2 years later, I'm in class, and we get an announcement that there's a new student was joining. So this girl comes in like in the middle of the semester. She comes in, she's a little heavyset. And I remember that the kids started picking on her. And almost every day, it just kept accelerating. They would pick at that girl, pick at that girl. Now remember now, I'm still the black child, literally. So, you know, I'm just trying to make myself very small. And they were picking on this girl so much, and it would just tear my heart up because the girl was nice. So I started talking to her, and she would always stop crying when I would go and talk to her. But they just kept picking on her. And I remember one day we were lining up to come back from the cafeteria, and they started picking on the girl again, and she started to cry. And the girl who was making herself small just like erupted. And I said, listen, if anybody does or says anything to her, they got to talk to me. You leave her alone. And that's what I said. And it's like everybody looked, they stopped what they were doing, and from that day on, no one did anything else to that girl. They didn't pick at her, they didn't say anything bad nor good to her. So it was like, for me, in terms of my self-esteem, I remembered who I was. I remembered the voice of my effect. And this was the first time that I was actually able to see it in operation. Although I'm the black child who's been called the N-word, who's been told to get out and to leave, that is not welcome at that school, everybody listened to what I said. And I think from that moment on, I stopped making myself small, and I allowed myself to be who I was. And I became more comfortable in the black skin that I was born in. And I realized that there's something in me that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I think that's what we call purpose. You know, I kind of latched on to purpose at that point. You know, it's so funny. I run across people all the time, and from the time that I was in college, I would hear people say things like, oh, you know, I was intimidated by you. And I'm thinking, I just don't get it, because to me, I'm very simple. I'm very, you know, basic. I'm very easy to understand. If you understand someone that doesn't like mediocrity, then you understand me, you get me. I don't like anything done that's just mediocre. I like to do things right. I like to do things at a certain level. So that's important for me. I like to grow, and I like to be the best that I can be. So I'm always working on myself. But then sometimes I have the expectation that other people will also want to change and want to grow. But that was really disturbing to me when people say, you know, you're intimidating. But one thing that I realize is I have this situation. Scientists think that it's because you see faces upside down. But I realize that I can't recognize people. So if you change your hair, or you do anything different, if I see you sometimes outside of the same arena, say I know you from school, and then I see you in the street somewhere, I don't recognize people. And so I think that maybe people started thinking that maybe I was being, you know, standoffish, because I wouldn't be openly, but I didn't know that I knew you because I didn't recognize. So my husband really realized it, because I'll be watching a movie and I'll be like, oh, this is a new actor, he's pretty good. Honey, that's Brad Pitt. And I'm like, that's Brad? All he has is a mustache. You can't see that that's Brad Pitt? And for me, it just doesn't register. And I finally have met like a whole bunch of people that are like me, that can't recognize faces. And I even have a son who doesn't recognize faces. So that's what I kind of put it off on. But that makes me very nervous, because now I don't want people to think that I'm standoffish. But sometimes I'm wondering if people are friendly. Is it that I know this person? So even at work, I have a staff, usually my assistant, would know certain individuals, so that if I see them somewhere, they'll say, oh, that's so-and-so, so that I'll know what to say or do. But yeah, I think I'm pretty basic, but I have heard people say that. I've heard people say too that, oh, you're stunning. They use that word stunning, which I couldn't figure out what does that mean, but I don't see that. I just see an ordinary girl who has pretty high standards about what she wants to do in life. All I care about is making my life count. I really want to make a contribution, and that for me is everything. I want to die full, knowing that everything that I was supposed to accomplish Everything that I was supposed to do happens. That to me means more than life. If I can't do that, it's like I worry, what was it all for? And so I've raised my kids, that's the kind of conversations that my husband and I have around purpose and destiny. And that's what makes me get up every day. So trying to understand how people see me is not something that I really worry about a lot, only because I understand there's certain things that I can do to be better, like to soften the way I talk to people. But I'm very focused and I'm very honest. So I think that the way that I do that, I can do it to a certain degree without being not honest with who I am. But I also don't worry because I've realized that people see you through their own lens. And so I can't really be that encumbered by that. 10 different people can see me as 10 different individuals based on who they are, their own insecurities and their own filters. They're gonna see me and interpret me on their own terms. Now the funny thing is that I'm a critical person. I think I'm the type of individual that if you don't watch it, you show me something, I can look at the paper and I'll see what's wrong with it right away. I know that I'm a critical individual, but it's a part of my my uniform, if you will. It helps me to do what I do very well, but it can be off-putting. I think I'm critical and I know it, but it's a part of my calling. And so I've learned how to manage that, you know, because sometimes you can come off very negative to individuals. But I remember a young woman that I met when I was just married, and she was saying to me that she is so much like me. She says, I'm very critical. And she says, try not to be as critical as I am. She says, that's an area that I've had to kind of polish over because people like us, we're very critical. And I was like, okay, you know, but I think the most self-critical. I have a measuring rod that I use to measure everybody and everything. I don't change it just because it's for me. I use the same rod or probably something that's even a stricter ruler on myself. So there's very little that you can say to me that I don't already know in terms of my flaws, things that I might need to work on, things that I want to improve. I'm aware. But you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. Vulnerability is something that I think a lot of people are afraid to have. And I think that's what you do when you're trying to hide yourself and you don't feel very comfortable as who you are. So this is what I mean. Say you're in a classroom and someone's talking and you don't know what they're talking about. You wouldn't answer, you wouldn't ask a question. Someone's talking to you and they use a vocabulary word that you don't know. You wouldn't ask, you just pretend. It's because you feel that that is the measure of who you are. And so you're afraid to show these inadequacies or these faults or the lack thereof. And for me, vulnerability is showing you in all of your greatness, showing you in all of the places where you're marred or scarred, right? So it means that they're there. This is me. So I might not want to stay here, but this is who I am at this moment. And I'm not afraid to show that. And what I found is the more that I do it, the more it enables other people to do the same, to be free. You know, there was a period of my life where I wore a mask. You know, how is it going? Oh, praise God, everything is fine. Oh, I'm doing great, you know. And I realized what it was like to take the mask off, to not meet anybody's ideals or their expectations of who they thought I was, but to be true to myself and to meet my own. And so for me now, I'm maskless, and I'm not talking about COVID, but I don't wear a mask anymore. I am who I am. Love me or leave me. And what I found is that when I own that identity, I attract to me the people that are meant to handle me. And I think that really rejection is just an indication that certain people weren't meant to do life with you at that particular time. So it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. And so that's the truth that I live in. Oh, I'm good. But I'm good marred. I'm good scarred until I can get through it. I think that self-esteem is really important in marriage. I'm gonna really frame it a little differently. Your self-esteem translates into your self-worth. So when you have a lot of self-esteem, you kind of feel like you're worth something. And I think that my standards for what a man would do for me were very high. And so I believe when you carry yourself like you believe you're worth something, guess what? It's like, this isn't Gucci just because, I thought it was Gucci. It's Gucci because the people that are seeing it believe that it's Gucci and it's worth a higher price tag. And so I think that your self-esteem is really important in that regard. But now, were there areas where it would wane? And I would say absolutely. Number one, I was very shy. I've always been shy. I just now got over being shy. So for me, being naked, I'm just not one of those naked people. I'm not one of those women that takes their bra off when they get home and walks around the house in their panties. I'm more comfortable with something on. And I think that there was a shyness with me sexually that I'm glad that I got over. And then number two, I think my self-esteem about my body image changed. When you have kids or you just get out of shape or whatever, those things are really central to how you show up in your relationship intimately, is what I'm really trying to say. I think that it really does have bearing, and we have to be honest about it. I think that my husband has helped my self-esteem only because he's not critical. Remember, I'm the one that's blatantly honest. He's the one that is very kind. So I'm always wonderful. I'm always stellar to him. Now I remember just recently, I wanted to give my hair a rest. So we were in the shelter inn. So I said, you know what? I'm just gonna braid my hair and I don't wanna comb it, I don't wanna do it, I just wanna give it a rest. Now I know I looked as ugly as Methuselah. Do you understand me? And that man, I would just wear this little scarf thing on my head during the day. And I would look in the mirror and just not even recognize who was staring back. But I would say, babes, this looks really bad, doesn't it? He'd be like, no, baby, you still look good. It looks nice. Now, I know he was lying, but that's just how kind he is and supportive, And according to him, I'm always on. I'm always lit. Well, my husband's a man. So when I think about his self-esteem in the marriage, the first thing that really did captivate me was I was bigger than life. And this man comes up to me after I've already turned down 3 before him, and he says, you want to dance? And then even when I say no, his self-esteem is so strong that he's still going to stand there and converse with me. I think that said it all. He's a man of great self-esteem. I think more importantly, he's a man that doesn't have a lot of insecurities. He's very comfortable in his skin. So he's like, you're an alpha girl. Alpha on. I got you. That's just the way that he is. And I love that because I've seen so many other women in relationships where their husbands become jealous or they feel insecure or they don't want their husbands, their wife rather, to outshine them. Man, my husband, he's like, baby, go do you, and I'm gonna be here to support you, And some of my friends would say, man, you can see his chest puff out, when he sees you, he's strutting with you, on his arm. I'm like, I never noticed. All I do notice is that he makes me feel supported and he makes me feel good in the skin that I'm in. I think that I'm always concerned about being overly critical because it is a part of my DNA. And so that's something that you have to manage. And I call it mind management. I think that whatever it is that you want to pursue, whether it's amending a characteristic of yourself, whether it's a character flaw, that you have to be very intentional and conscientious about it. That's the only way that you're going to move the needle and make a change. In the course of my marriage, I think that I work on self-esteem not just in the context of my marriage, but just overall. And I think that if you're really feeling strong about who you are and you're owning your identity, you show up differently in the relationship. And I think that's good sexually. I think that that's good in terms of how you deal with situations and conflicts that arise. It's just good overall. So I think being cognizant of when it's waning and when you're feeling like, everything is on and popping is really good. But here's the good thing. I remember when I went through a phase where I wasn't so sure. I was starting a new business and, when you get told no 15 consecutive times, right? And you've gone back to the drawing board and you've tried again and, you can take a blow. But sometimes you have to remember who you were before they said no. You got to remember, what your superpowers are And remember to iron out that cape and put it on and do your thing and go back out there. But let me tell you, the thing that's most important though is when you have someone standing beside you to remind you of who you were before they said no, and helping to iron that cape for you and get you going on your way again. I think that's the most powerful thing that exists between, you know, a couple or any other powerful relationship.
Hey, Dr. Jacquie here. I'm your how-to lady. How to do life, how to do love, and how to do you, boo. So click, like, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more to come.